Are you ready? Are you ready, Ray?
All right.
Okay, hello, we are live.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Christy Warwick. I'm a software engineer at Google. I'm really passionate about continuous delivery to the point that I created an open source framework for it called Tekton, and I even wrote a book about it. But these days, I work on the GCP DevOps team on products like Cloud Build and Cloud Deploy.
Okay, and I am Nate Avery. I am an outbound product manager here at Google, and I cover the CI/CD products. So those are Cloud Build, Cloud Deploy, Artifact Registry, as well as a few others.
So what we want to do today is show you how you can use GCP to increase the speed, stability, and security of your projects. Now, the easiest way to do that is to build these things in from the very beginning of your project. But in reality, most of us are working on something that already exists, that we've been working on for a while. So we're going to try to simulate that today by working with a project that already exists. We're going to work with this example application that shows country populations. And it's just a simple project. The code is on GitHub. And we're already using GKE to run this project, and we're deploying it using Cloud Deploy. So that might not sound too bad, but we've got some problems. So we only have one production environment that you can see here. And unfortunately, when engineers release to this manually, the releases often cause outages. So if you're familiar with the DORA metrics, which I know Nate likes to speak about a lot. I don't know if you want to say anything about DORA metrics, just to put you on the spot, Nate.
Oh, yeah, well, okay, so the DORA metrics are really cool. Let's see, how can I put this? Yes, Google, Google picked up what used to be the State of DevOps report, and essentially what it does is it helps us understand how folks are doing when it comes to deploying your software, right? What's it like in terms of velocity and culture and how those things intersect? So what we're trying to do is make sure that the tools that we build incorporate a lot of those same ideas in order to, help facilitate your improved velocity.
Right. And so what the DORA group found is they found 4 metrics that they can measure that correlate with the success of the project. There's 2 that are about stability, and there's 2 that are about velocity. And so looking at our imaginary project here, it doesn't do very well through the DORA metrics. It's because the releases are risky. They don't happen very often. So deployment frequency, which is one of the metrics, is low. And another metric, the lead time for changes, is high because you're not deploying often, so it takes a long time for changes to get out. And then because these outages happen pretty often, the third metric, change failure rate, is high. Now, the fourth metric is the speed to recover from outages. And since we're using Cloud Deploy, fortunately, it's pretty easy to roll back bad releases. So that's somewhere that this project is okay. But we can do better. So what we want to do today is increase the stability, speed, and the security posture of this project.
Oh, so can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
Sorry. Okay, so we say that it's one environment. Does that mean there's also just one cluster?
Yes, in this case, it means there is one cluster. There's just one cluster in US Central 1. It doesn't. It's managed through this cloud, through the Cloud Deploy environment called prod. All right. I think. Oh, you froze for a second there. Okay, so I think that does that answer your question, Nate?
Yeah, that answers it.
Okay, cool. All right, so the first thing we want to focus on is stability, because if we started moving faster, we increased our velocity before things were stable, we'd just be putting broken stuff out more often, and we cause more problems. So we're going to use Cloud Deploy and GKE to create more stability. Let's take a look at a bug that recently got out to production. So here's a bug. It's a pretty simple bug. There's just some of the logic here is incorrect. But unfortunately, this made it all the way out to production. There was a total outage. The service was completely down. What would have been really nice is if we could have gotten some kind of signal that something was wrong here before it got out to all of our users. So one way that we can do that is by using a strategy called a canary deployment. So I'm going to take my cloud deploy configuration and I'm going to add a section to my delivery pipeline that uses a canary deployment strategy. So what this will do is when I make a deployment, instead of giving it to all of my users at once, it'll only go out to about 5% of the users. And then Cloud Deploy will verify to make sure that the deployment is healthy before rolling it out to the rest of them. The other thing—
Canary is also called progressive delivery, right?
Yes, yeah. Canary deployment is a way of doing progressive delivery. There's other strategies that you could use, like blue-green deployment, but this is a particular one where you focus on having basically a canary in the coal mine, where you're going to test something out, and if something goes wrong, it's an indication that you probably shouldn't go ahead with the deployment. The other thing I'm going to do at the same time is, in addition to adding the canary deployment, I'm going to use another Cloud Deploy feature to add regionalization. So as we were discussing, I've got my one GKE cluster in US Central 1, but I actually also set up two other ones, one in Europe and one in Asia. So I've added 3 targets to my Cloud Deploy configuration, one for each of those GKE clusters. And then I'm going to use this new feature that lets me have one target that groups those together. And that way I'll actually have my service deployed to these 3 different targets, and they'll all be protected by the canary deployment. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. So
while those are being added, I noticed that those are targets that are GKE clusters. What other types could they be?
So I think Cloud Run is the other supported environment. I'm not sure, actually. Those are the only 2 I'm familiar with. I don't know if you know about any other ones.
Yeah, we're working on a couple of others in the future, near future. We'll see how long this video lasts in the world. But yeah, it's Cloud Run, Anthos, Cloud Run jobs as well. So yeah, any of those can be targets. And like I said, stay tuned.
All right, so over in Cloud Deploy, we should now see, okay, so we now have a multi-target. We can go and look at the details here. So we're using a canary deployment, and then we have this one target with 3 child targets, which are our 3 GKE clusters. All right. So remember the bug that we were looking at? I want to show you what it would look like now that we have a canary deployment if I was to try to do a release that had that bug. So I built an image in advance that has that bug in it. And over here, I'm going to use gcloud to create a new release. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're going to create a new release that has the image that has that bug. And over here, we should see that. All right, it's queued. Okay, so the canary deployment is pending. All right, so while we're waiting for that, let me show you one more thing that I can improve using Cloud Deploy. So now what will happen when we do a canary rollout is that only a small percentage of our users will be impacted by this bug. But wouldn't it be great if we could find it before it impacted any users at all? So the third thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more target, and that's a staging environment. So I have another GKE cluster that I made in advance that I'm going to use as my staging environment. And in my deployment pipeline, before we get to the production target, we're going to deploy things to the staging environment. So this way we can do some testing. Maybe it's manual, maybe it's automated on that staging environment. And we'll also have I added it in here. We're going to have a manual approval step between these environments. Maybe I added that later. No, we're going to add manual approval to production. So that way we can do some testing and staging, make sure everything's okay, get a manual sign off before things go to production. And then we should actually have less of these things making it out to production. Let me add that staging environment as well. So back here, the canary rollout has started. And when we look at our delivery pipeline, there, all right, so we have a staging environment, we have a manual approval checkpoint between the 2 environments, and we have our canary deployment going out to production. So if it happens quickly enough, we can take a look at what it looks like when that fails and then roll it back. But in the meantime—
Can we take a look at that pipeline again?
Oh yeah.
All right. So, all right. So the manual approval is right between staging and prod. That's the
Mhm.
new connector there that says pending. Uh,
Yes.
if we were to deploy again, it would go first to staging, then pending would say yes, there's an action pending, and then it would move on to prod.
Yes, that's right. So using
Yeah.
the same, so if you look at the command that I was using to make these releases, I'm 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 applying releases to a particular delivery pipeline. But now that we've added this staging environment, anything that goes to this pipeline will go to the staging environment first and has to go all the way through before it can make it to production. And yeah, it would be paused in the middle. You'd have to, someone who has permission would have to go and approve the release to actually make it out to production and continue the rollout. Oh, looks like some of our canaries are failing, so that's great. Let's just see. Okay, the deployment succeeded, the verification failed, which makes sense because there's a bug. And let me just see if we want to roll that back now or if we want to wait for it to continue a little bit further. I'm going to come back to that. What?
Yeah, while that's waiting, can you talk about what that verify was doing? What's the
Oh, sure.
action that the verification takes?
Sure. Let's go and see where, I think it's in the scaffold configuration. There is a, so Cloud Deploy uses scaffold. So this is a scaffold feature that you can use outside of Cloud Deploy as well. But you can tell it how to verify a set of configurations. So here, what I'm doing is we're actually starting this is for when we're deploying into a Kubernetes cluster. It'll actually start a container. And then what that is doing is it's actually just making a request to the service that got deployed, and it's doing it in a loop 100 times to make sure that because it's a canary, there's a chance that when we try to make the request, we'll go to one of the old versions. So it might be fine. So basically trying to make repeated requests. And then this is probably not I wouldn't copy this logic as is for your own verification. You'd want to think about what it means for your service to be healthy and then put something here that makes sense. But basically we're starting a container inside the cluster and then hitting the service to make sure that it's up and healthy, which in this case, it is not. All right, I think there's just one of those that's still going. So I'll come back to it. I want to let all of them fail, but I think I can just stop the whole thing. That doesn't work. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about what we've accomplished so far. So now that our delivery pipeline has a staging environment and we have canary deployments, any changes that go out can be checked in staging first. And if any problems do make it from staging out to production, they're only going to hit a small percentage of the overall users. So there we go, perfect. The number of users that are impacted will be smaller. And when this does happen, we can really easily roll back. So we're going to roll back to a successful release here. So this should make it so that our change failure rate is lower because we should be catching things hopefully in staging, and the time to restore should also be lower because we can just do these really easy rollouts and rollbacks, and because we only have to roll back the canaries, not the entire thing. So let's roll that back.
Yeah, and if you're looking at your time to restore service for prod, it would be even less than that because theoretically you would catch them in your staging.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So now things are more stable. So now we can start talking about moving a little bit faster. So from a DORA perspective, increasing our speed means increasing our deployment frequency. So deploying more often. And then that makes it so that our lead time for changes is lower because changes are getting out faster because they're happening more frequently. So the big thing that's stopping us from deploying frequently is that we're not actually catching any of these problems until at least we're catching them hopefully in staging now, but it's not until we start making releases. So what would be nice is if we could shift things left and start getting signals sooner. So it turns out that in this project that we're looking at, we actually have some tests already. Well, really just one, but let's pretend there's more than one. So we have some unit tests, and this test would have caught the problem that made it out to production, but we're relying on developers to manually run these tests at the right moments. So let's see how we could use Google Cloud Build so that we could use these tests to actually protect our code base. So what we're going to do is...
Okay, and Cloud Build is our CI tool. So in our system, we have tools for CI integration, which is Cloud Build, and then we have Cloud Deploy, which focuses on deployment.
Right. So over here, we've set up a Cloud Build configuration file, Cloud Build YAML, that will build an image, and inside that image, it will run our unit tests. So I'm going to use Cloud Build triggers to create a trigger to make sure that these tests are run every time a pull request is created. So let's call this, meet within the region. This is probably not going to work, but let's try that. So we're going to trigger this whenever a pull request happens. We're going to use the repository that I've already connected. We're going to use the Cloud Build test file that we were just looking at. And we're going to send the logs back to GitHub so that we can see what happens. Okay.
Nice.
All right. So triggers created. Okay, so that bug that we were looking at, let's see what would happen if we opened a pull request that contained that bug.
Yeah, and for everyone watching at home, this is just normal GitHub. There's nothing special about it, just web-based GitHub.
Yeah. All right, there we go. The test started. Another thing you can do on top of this is that you can also require, you can set up your branch protection settings in GitHub to require that this pass, instead of basically at this point, I could still merge it even though it hasn't completed. So over here, we've got Cloud Build running the tests. We can go and take a look at what this looks like in Cloud Build. So we've got our logs here. So in the Cloud Build console, we can see what's happening in real time. And then back in GitHub, this will be updated with all the details once that completes.
That's pretty cool. So the testing is like completely automated at this point because it's just another step in your Cloud Build YAML.
Exactly. All right. So it failed. And then down here in GitHub, we can see, all right, the unit test that we had failed. So at this point, we can have much more confidence in our code base because we'll know that if changes are going in, we know that they passed the tests. So then that makes us feel good about moving a little bit faster. So if we have more confidence, why not make things a little faster by automatically deploying to our staging environment? So we feel good about the code base, things get in. Once things get in, the tests have passed. Do we need to make somebody check that again before and manually do the deployment, or could we just do it automatically? Let's do it automatically, also using Cloud Build. So I have another Cloud Build configuration file that I've set up here. And what this will do is it will build an image, and then it'll create a new release, and then it'll wait for that release to successfully roll out. So
when it creates that release, it's just doing what you were doing from the command line, but it does it as a step inside of Cloud Build.
Exactly, and it does it using the latest revision that was just checked, that was just merged into the repository. So we can create a trigger in Cloud Build to do this. Oh, that's not right. And we're going to, so now we'll do this on a push to a branch, which is basically when you push to the main branch, that's the same as merging into the branch. Use the repository we're just looking at. We'll use the Cloud Build deploy. And that. All right, so meanwhile, now that I know that my branch has a bug in it, let me go and fix that bug.
Actually, we might want to go back and check. I don't know if check GitHub, moving logs to GitHub was on there.
Oh, I didn't check. So I didn't check it on the deploy because I don't think it does anything. I'm not sure because the thing is that this one is triggered on a merge. So I don't think it goes back and updates the pull request afterwards. I think it's just, I think if I check, I could check it. I don't think it would go anywhere. On the pull request, it definitely goes to GitHub. I was wondering about that. I'm not 100% sure. We could try it, see what happens. I'm pretty sure it won't show up anywhere. Okay, so back over here, I am going to fix the bug that we put in here. So let's see, we're on the right branch. And I'm going to go and find the broken logic. Okay, so this was just a simple little logic error. Let me fix that.
Look at that, commenting code.
I felt like I talk a lot about commit messages, so I felt like I should put something more in there, but I don't. Okay, so push that. Oh dear. Well, nobody. That's fairly smooth. I think that's okay. Oh no. All right, hold everybody. Two-factor
Proof that authentication mechanisms work.
All right, there we go. Cool. All right. There's no world where somebody could have gotten that fast enough to pretend to be me, right? I don't think so. Okay. All right, back here, push that, and then, all right, it's fixed. Okay, so now the test will actually run again, and then as soon as that succeeds, we can merge it, and then it will get deployed to the staging environment. While that's going, I want to talk about how you can push this even further left. You might have noticed that I'm using cloud workstations to do this. And we also talked a little bit about how Cloud Deploy uses Scaffold. So Cloud Workstation actually comes with Minikube running, and using Scaffold and Minikube, what I can do is I can actually deploy this same application using my same Scaffold configuration just to my local Minikube inside of Cloud Workstations. So I can do Scaffold dev.
So in this case, Minikube is going to act as your cluster.
Exactly. Okay, and while that's going, so over here, the tests have passed. So I'm going to merge this in. Now, this is the part where I didn't check GitHub, the send logs to GitHub, because I think you can associate failures with commits after merge, but I don't think that Cloud Build does that at the moment. Well, maybe that's not true, actually, because there is a little, it kind of looks like it's an in progress logo. Oh, never mind. You were right. Maybe I should have checked that off, because here's the, yeah, okay. I should have checked it off after all. Let's see what shows up here. Okay. Anyways, here it is running in Cloud Build.
That's pretty cool. Just takes you right to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna fix that. And deploy. Edit. Send logs to GitHub. It kind of looks like it's doing it anyway. You know what it might do though is it might just give me this link and not actually copy the logs over here.
Yeah, could be.
We'll see what happens. Okay, so it is what you might want to do if you have some kind of sensitive information in your logs and you don't want it to go back onto public GitHub, but that is up to you. Okay, so this is still building. Once that's done, it's going to create a new release. It'll go to the staging environment. So back over here, so I use what I did with Scaffold Dev is that we are now built and ran this application using Minikube that's local to Cloud Workstations. And another thing that Cloud Workstations does that's kind of cool is it does port forwarding for you. So if you notice, it's probably kind of small, but in the URL bar here, there's an 80 at the beginning of this URL. So that actually means I'm hitting port 80 on this workstation. But if I change that and I just change the port at the beginning of the URL, I can attempt to hit whatever that port is on my Cloud Workstation. And so on 8080, that's where Scaffold is running. So I get a local version of the application. So basically what this does is while I'm working on changes over here, I can try them out locally on my workstation. And if I make any changes, Scaffold will actually hot reload them and rebuild the image and redeploy it to my local workstation. So that's a way that I can shift even further left and get faster feedback before anything even makes it to the pull request or to GitHub.
Yeah, and 8080 was configured previously, right? I mean, there's like a config step where you put that in. So if you don't want to use 8080 because of reasons, then you can also modify that.
Yeah, I think it might actually just be, no, I think it's actually in the Kubernetes configuration somewhere. Let's see, which one of these is it? The deployment? Yeah, the deployment is configured. No, that's the readiness probe, still not that one. On the fly, then you try to, so that'd be the service. There we go, it's the port in the service, and then that's also configured. But yeah, you can use any port that you want. Okay, so this I think is already, we created, so the Cloud Build job that was kicked off after the merge has created a new release, and this is it is now currently rolling out to the staging environment. So once it gets there, I could decide to promote it, in which case I'd have to do manual approval. They'll go to prod, do canary deployments, all of that. Okay, so what have we accomplished now? So now we have more confidence in our code base because we know that tests will be run against it before anything is merged. Because we're getting that feedback faster, and we could even get it as early as while we're doing our development, which is nice. We feel better about merging or about deploying more frequently. We can start automating our push out to staging. So then at this point, it's basically just a business decision if we decide to go even faster and go straight from staging to production. So we probably would want to add something like maybe we add some kind of automated test to our staging environment. We could make it so that this manual approval, it doesn't necessarily have to be done manually. It could be that we have some automation that kicks off that runs some tests, and if those succeed, then we automatically go to production. So we could go as far as doing continuous deployment if we wanted to, and it made sense for our business case. So here I can promote my release from staging. I'm going to promote that. And so now this will be gated on a manual approval.
Yep, there it is.
I can review that. And so I have permission to do this, but you can also set up your permission so that only specific people with specific roles are able to do this, depending on what your business case is.
Yeah, those are just like normal IAM permissions. There's nothing crazy you have to do.
All right, so we start another set of Canary rollouts. All right, so at this point,
that's pretty slick because it also shows like prod 1, prod 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There's kind of like prod, which is our multi-target, multi-deployment target. I'm not saying that phrase right. And then there's the 3 child targets behind it. Okay, so we've improved our stability. We've improved our speed. Before we finish up, let's take a look at the security posture of this project and what we can do. Let's look at the image that we're rolling out here. So this is the one that we just built, triggered by the merge action. So what we can do is we can go in, because of some things that I set up previously, we can look at the security insights for this image that we're rolling out, and we can see a few things. We can see that the artifact, the image that we are deploying, meets the requirements for SALSA build level 3. We can see that it was scanned for vulnerabilities. There's one vulnerability that has a fix available. We can also see that there are some VEX statements that were generated for it. We can see that there was an SBOM that was created in artifact registry for this image. And we can see that SALSA provenance was created for the image as well. So this has all the details of exactly how this was built, the configuration that was used to build it, and all the parameters that went into building that as well. So
yeah, and the one piece there that was mentioned is artifact registry. So after that artifact is built, it's stored in artifact registry, which is another one of our products, and it's stored along with the metadata that was discussed. So that's how we can then call that again and show you all of those components.
So you can use this information to do some interesting things. You can use the VEX statements and the SBOMs to be able to answer questions like, say, a new vulnerability has come out that affects a certain library. You can use that to look at the artifacts that you've built and the images that you're serving in production and see if they're vulnerable to that vulnerability. And if you use the SALSA 1.0 provenance can be used with features like binary authorization. For example, you can use binary authorization to create policies around that. I have this policy set up on my clusters, which uses a new feature called a SALSA check to look at that SALSA provenance. And basically, this requires that the image be built with Google Cloud Build, and it requires that build as code was used, basically that the configuration that was used to build it was checked into version control, which can give you other nice properties like looking at who made changes to it and requiring that you have reviews on those changes. At the moment, this feature is so new that all that it does is audit. So basically logs will be printed out if any images are in the cluster that violates it. But in the future, you would be able to potentially stop the deployment of images that or artifacts that didn't meet this policy.
Yeah, it's still pretty cool though.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. All right. Okay, so that is how we were able to improve the stability, speed, and security posture of the project using Cloud Deploy, Cloud Build, Artifact Registry, Cloud Workstations, and binary authorization. You can also see all the configuration that I used at this GitHub repo, which is public if you want to see how any of that was set up. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess we can put the link to this repo in the notes, right? That would be okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. That was pretty cool.
Thank you.
Pretty quick. All right. So again, that was cloud build, and then that's where the CI takes place. Well, first, let's go even further left. Cloud workstations. That's where that was your IDE, and that's hosted on Google Cloud. Then from there, you check your code into a code repo. The code has a trigger. Well, Cloud Build has a trigger that knows that, hey, that that branch was updated, and CI begins. And in the CI, you had your unit tests. The image, the container is built and stored inside of artifact registry. And then we also take that same artifact and deploy it using Cloud Deploy. That's
exactly.
kind of
and then in Cloud Deploy, we set up our delivery pipeline so that we have a staging environment, manual approval in between, and then production deployment to 3 different targets with canary deployments to protect them. I think at this point, let me see, did that succeed? Can I promote it? Oh, there's still one going. But from this point, I could promote the canary deployments to all of the targets nearly. Because verification just has to finish succeeding. But yeah.
Oh, hey, can we drill down on that again?
Yeah, sure. All right, let's go here. All right, so we can see that so basically there's the three production environments that need to be verified, and 2 of them finished. So they're just waiting for me to advance them from the canary phase to roll out to everything. And then there's one that's still in progress for some reason. And as soon as that's, I guess I could, I don't think it doesn't let me just advance one of them. That would be kind of weird to do anyway.
Yeah, so that was a parallel deployment you had set up, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and here's a different view of it. You can see that it's a canary phase, and it's got these 3 targets. And 2 out of the 3 of them are successful, and 1's still going. And then once that completes, I can advance the rollout.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So like these 3 are those 3 geographically separated clusters, and they're in different regions. And yeah, I guess like anything else, some of them may run a little faster than others. However, it is meant to deploy to all 3 at once. So if you want to, you can set that up, or you could set it up where you just deploy to a single target and then roll out to a different target. You don't have to use parallel, but it is a really cool feature, and it's a huge time saver.
Yeah, we could be doing other things too. Like we could have some kind of canary in front of our staging environment as well. We could use that as a way to run some tests. Or you could use PubSub or something to basically set up something in the middle that would run tests automatically here in between these 2, and then maybe automatically advance them. It'd be nice if this finished so we could advance the rollout, but
yeah,
pretty much everything works, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it is really cool because this is live and it's in real time. So there's nothing weird happening. We're not switching. It's not like a baking show or any of that.
I did bake some images in an image in advance. So,
but I mean, aside from like some of the normal things, you know what? Can we take a look at the Cloud Deploy YAML file as well as the scaffold YAML?
Sure. Let's see.
A little bit of time, so it'd be kind of neat to walk through that a little bit.
All right. So this is the Cloud Deploy one. So we've got delivery pipeline. Delivery pipeline refers to our 2 targets that we were looking at: staging target and the production target. The production target is the more complicated one that points to the 3 children. It requires manual approval. The actual Cloud Deploy configuration itself is pretty light and easy. I think it's more the scaffold part where things get a little bit more complicated. So this is the scaffold configuration. It knows how to build the application that we're deploying. It knows how to find the Docker file. It also points at the Kubernetes configuration, which all lives over here. This verification that we already talked about. Talked a little bit about port forwarding. You can have different profiles.
we take a look at that verify, you're just running a script in there. I mean, essentially, you're just defining it right there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you could do much more complicated things if you want. You probably should do something slightly more complicated. I mean, the ideal, especially for something like a canary deployment, what you really want is you also don't want something that's probably quite as fast as what we were just looking at. Like you probably want to, we can advance it now. You probably want to start a canary deployment, and then you need it to run for long enough that you can actually get a good signal. So if you have enough use of your service that you can get a signal immediately, maybe it's fine, but you probably want to leave it for a while, and then you want to have something that's looking at whatever metrics are important for your service and collecting those over that period of time, and then determining if things are healthy or not. I suppose there's more extreme cases too, like if everything's just crashing, then maybe you do want to immediately react and just roll it back. But most, knock on wood, most bugs are more subtle than that and would just be affecting like a percentage of your traffic. And you need to have some kind of logic that's determining if things are healthy or not. Let's advance that. Advance the rollout. Okay, so now it's rolling out to everywhere. Also, this isn't technically, I said it's 5% of the traffic, but in this case, that's not technically true because I think I believe there's only 3 pods that are backing each of these. So I think it ends up being something like 1 out of the 3 pods. It's like approximated. You can also use, we're just using the way that we're splitting the traffic is pretty naive, but you can use a service mesh as well. And then you can configure Cloud Deploy and Scaffold to be aware of that service mesh. And then you could actually have it be 5% of the traffic because the traffic will be routed appropriately. But it was just a little bit easier to set it up this way.
Yeah, it is a lot easier just to kind of leave it with the defaults, just let it run. But yeah, this is just a quick demo here. But yeah, we know in real environments you probably do have a service mesh, so all of that is totally supported, and I believe it should work with like any Istio service mesh.
All right. Anything else you want to dig into, or?
All right, we talked about scaffold. Yeah, I think we're okay. Yeah.
We could. Oh wait, we could do a hot reload. Hold on a second.
Oh yeah.
Wish I had this ready. Okay.
Testing out the local loop.
I have a feeling this might actually just be the top of the page. Close it. I'm too excited. I did save the file before I close it. I think this might just be the top of the page, though. I was trying to change the title. I think it's going to change something up here. It has that now Scaffold is rebuilding the entire image, but over here, something's going to put there. Maybe while that's building, I can figure
Go down to like line 45.
it.
Thought there was something down there. I think, yeah, one of those I think changes. Like you can use it to change the header, and I see you've got this. There's nothing really good in there. I think there's country name or country code, and yeah.
Oh, render template site name. Okay, wait, that's somewhere in the templates over here. Thanks. Well, this
there you go.
Let's see, population stats. Is it? Wait, oh, base. It's in here. Also, I mean, I copied this from your repository, and you copied it from this. Not copied, sorry. Started from that repository. I haven't changed all the references.
It's okay.
Did it finish? No, it's still reloading. Let's wait for it to stabilize. Okay, it loaded, but I can't. I think it's up. Oh yeah. No, there's no hello. Where's my hello world? No, that's what I get for trying to do this on the fly.
Wait, that was your local one, right? I noticed there are a couple of tabs there.
This one's my local one. It's in here somewhere, I bet.
Yeah, I see 8080. Yeah.
Okay, wait. I have a plan. If anyone, so okay, somewhere in here is going to be the thing that says popular block content. I feel like I can physically feel the loss of viewers for population stats. Okay, here. Put it here. No. All right, that's definitely going to work. Okay, so hot reloading again. Meanwhile, it would be somewhere on here. Where did my hello world end up? Nowhere? No, I don't believe it.
Yeah, it's definitely in there.
Maybe it's not. Okay, well, it's going to happen this time. What was the thing that I changed? I changed the site name. It goes under render template. Maybe it's just not used in here anywhere. Country name. Yeah, maybe it's just not used anywhere. Whoops. What is used? I don't.
Yes,
It might have a logo. No, it's a mystery. But this one's gonna come back. Waiting for it to stabilize. The hot reloading is really nice, but it is a little bit, because it's the whole container and then basically deploying it to small Kubernetes, it is a little bit slow.
Yeah, but again, it's just local, so you can have some measure of certainty before you go live with it, and you know say, yeah, this is really the thing that you want to deploy to your deploy into your environment.
Hello. Oh, right down there. Oh, I wasn't even. Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. I don't know where the hello world went, but at least I got something in there. All right, quitting while I'm ahead.
Okay, but that's the hot reload, and that happens as soon as you write and save the file, and that's local, and your staging environment has not yet been changed because you haven't committed that code to the code repo.
Right. Yeah, actually, I guess there's not. I mean, there's nothing that you'll. We rolled out to production. This says localhost, but it was actually. Oh, that's a good sign. It says localhost, but it was actually. Oh, it's a port forward that I set up somewhere, and the pod is down. Just 1 second. I'll put it back. I didn't actually expose it publicly. In another window, I'm doing a port forward. It's nice that Cloud Workstation says this for me. But this is the production one. There's nothing. We didn't change anything here. There's nothing to see. But yeah, so the hello is not here. I mean, and the other thing is that in your local development loop, I mean, in addition to the hot reloaded, you really want to be running your tests regularly as well. So yeah. definitely don't want, as much as possible, not leaving that until the pull request. But sometimes when you have integration tests and tests that take a really long time, I mean, I definitely would probably wait until the pull request to see those.
Yeah, and this is just like standard, code OSS. So you can add all kinds of different plugins if you needed to. I mean, it works pretty much the same as just normal VS Code. So, or are you actually running VS Code? Or are you doing the VS Code connected over SSH?
I didn't do anything fancy like that. This is just a VM that I think is managed by Cloud Workstations for me. This is a lot of the default configuration too, but you do have access to. I have like a Vim extension, but you can use any VS Code extensions with this as well. Actually, I'd say it's really slick.
Yeah, it does a lot of really cool stuff, and you can like change the IDE if you want. So, if you need to use like RStudio or anything like that, those are also options. Cool. Well, I don't see any comments in the chat, so I think we're okay.
All right. Well,
All right.
that's fun.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Based on feedback, we'll do another one of these, and we will see. All right. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Bye. I'm assuming you could turn this off. So